Great.
Whoa.
Yeah.
You guys your podcasts have sound? What the hell is this?
So fancy.
Well, the video one's just the jazz hands. Other than that, though, you have to actually sync it with the sound one in order for it to work. So
Interpretive podcasting. I like it.
Yeah.
All right, well. Welcome to Azeroth Roundtable, episode 342. My name is Ben Bumhofer. It is Friday night. And you know what? We're going to have a good time tonight. Because with me, as always, is John Jagger. How's it going, John?
Hello, Ben. It is Friday night here in Azeroth, and I am super excited to be joining you at the round table. A crowded round table. A round table full of friends. This is a friggin' star-studded event we have here. Look at this. We're not going to have to do any work. This is it. I hope you enjoy Ben and I talking, because we got Scott and Jocelyn on the show, and we're going to just let them take it from here, because they're
Hello.
pros.
Welcome to the Scott and Jocelyn Hour. We'll be doing this. Yeah. You all can answer your questions from us, because now we're in charge. We take over your show. Whee!
That's fine. It's going to be much better now, actually.
Quality improved. We did it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy to be here. I'm mostly happy because Jocelyn's also here. And I was telling her this via DM recently that we never seem to do any shows together. We have all this connective tissue in the community, and we're always doing stuff.
That's so weird.
It does sound a little weird, but we don't have any. We're like never on the same show together, and it's kind of a bummer. So, yeah. Well, thank you for making that possible, John.
Perfect. Well, actually, it was a weird set of crazy coincidences. Both of you weren't able to join us last week, but you could do this week. So I'm like, why the hell not? Let's do this.
Yeah, double it up.
Let's Avengers this business. Let's get them all.
Exactly.
It's weird because I see John all the time, it feels like.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that is weird, man.
yeah,
It is. I can attest to that.
to see him in this context is always throws me for about 5 minutes, and then I'm good. It's all making. In fact, right now it makes perfect sense what we're doing. But for about 30 seconds there, I wasn't sure who I was, where I was at.
Why is John talking so much?
What's
Who put him in charge? I'm used to, reining him in a bit, but suddenly he has power, and I don't like this dynamic at all. It's gotten away from me.
Totally works.
It has been a long time since we talked WoW with both of you. Scott, you and I talk WoW a lot, but it's been a bit. I actually have it's related to WoW, but it's a different question that I want to ask Joss, because she's in a very unique position, and I hate to feel like I'm just constantly going to be like, you're a science experiment, give us answers. But Jocelyn started playing post Cataclysm.
Oh, okay.
And now
That's
she's
playing.
Now she's playing Classic, and she's getting to see how the rest of us lived for a whole period of time where she wasn't playing the game. And I want to check in and see how that's going.
Well, I really hope that this isn't going to be a show all about Classic, because I'm going to have to go. But I played it for the first probably week, maybe, and I totally fell off because I play on White Mane and on Pagel, and both of them, I couldn't fit it into my schedule because of the queues. So I was like, I really want to play. I'm having so much fun. I'm level 10 with my Paladin. This is great. And yeah, then I never logged in again, because every time I tried, I was like, oh, it's going to be 4 hours. All right, then I'll go play something else.
Well, I hear
I know it's gotten better, but I just haven't gone back yet.
Well, John, there's your answer.
That's my answer.
I'm
I got
sorry.
the whole answer. It was, I'm not gonna pretend it wasn't disappointing, but I also don't want my guests to feel bad, so I guess I'll just be like, okay, that was an answer. Over to you, Ben.
Well, so here's the funny thing. I have a problem that's come up, and it was because of some news that came out, a couple weeks ago. I don't know if I should race change all of my characters or create brand new ones with all of the Vulpera that I want to have.
Yeah, you're all about the ratchet and not the clank.
Pretty much.
I mean, if you think about it, they're not fooling me. There's that thing looks like Ratchet, and those robot gnomes look like Clank, and the only thing that's weird is they can't be together, really. And so that's what they do. I know what they're up to.
Forbidden love.
This is true.
So confirmed by Activision, Ratchet versus Clank is the next game coming out.
Yep. Yeah. Sony has no idea what's coming. Technically, I think they own those characters, but yeah, the Vulpera stuff. You're pretty nuts about those Vulpera. Why? You want to explain? I want to hear because I haven't heard the show lately. I don't know why you're so excited. I have to admit, I kind of want one, and I'm not big on the tiny races, not into the short races. Mm-hmm. So it's not usually a thing I care about. But for some reason, maybe because they showed me around the desert and that was nice. Maybe that's why I like them. But tell me why Ben is so in love with the Vulpera. Why?
It's the Dolly and Dot song, right? Like that's
a big part of it. Actually.
That's what I thought.
Well, it's funny because I find myself like obviously I'm a huge Pandaren fan. Absolutely love them. A big part of it is because I like the Pandaren culture in the game, as well as the environments and the aesthetic and everything. And my monk is a Pandaren just because it made sense to me to make a Pandaren monk because they came in with the class and race at the same time. Totally fits. From that point on, I'm like, okay, this is cool, having a blast, loving being a monk and everything. And then all of a sudden the Vulpera showed up, and I don't know what it is. Like, they're completely adorable, and that's probably a big part of it. But I love the idea of like these little scrappy characters who like, oh, they look really cute, but they've got like a huge punch and a huge bite behind them. Like one of the first quests that you do, after you get caught is, one of them helps you escape, and then you help arm all of them, and then they start attacking all the Sethrak. And I just think that's awesome. They're like, very into, kind of their culture. They're nomadic and everything. And even more so, they're just, they stick together. They fight for every like scrap that they can get, tooth and nail, and they're cute at the same time. It's a mix that really seems to mesh with me for some reason.
Wait a minute, Ben. It sounds like you're saying they're a little Mad Maxy.
Now Scott's on board.
Yeah, now you got me. No, you know what? I sense the same thing, and I'd be lying if I said part of what I like about them isn't their kind of their base of operations. I love deserts. I love sort of barren wastes and that sort of thing. And I love stories about characters, cultures, creatures who find a way to carve out an existence in that kind of place, and they are definitely that. So yeah, I'm kind of with you, and it's funny because again, I couldn't get excited about goblins other than I think goblins are kind of funny, but I never wanted to play one. Exactly. And I never wanted to be a gnome. And I know that's a stereotype to hate gnomes, but I really do hate them. I really hate them. They're awful creatures, but the Vulpera I don't have a problem with them in the way that I have problems with gnomes. And the problem I have with gnomes is a cultural problem. Like they're just kind of a-holes, and I don't like them. But the Vulpera, I feel like I can get behind them. I feel like they're scrappy, like you said. I feel like they've got, I don't know, how do I put this? They're not really there to prove anything or dominate over anyone. They just want to carve out their own existence and die trying to defend it. And there's something about that to respect, which sounds like we've made a lot of story about these little creatures we barely know about, but that's kind of
well, with the quest lines that we've had, that's pretty much what we were given. And if you think about it, that kind of boils down to what the Horde really is. A bunch of underdogs just trying to make an existence in a place that, is pretty much against them the entire time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Plus I don't know, they seem to, I hate to use Ewoks as an example because I really hate Ewoks, but
I like them.
A lot of people do, and I shouldn't talk too much smack about Ewoks. They tend to be kind of the same boat. Like what's with these stormtroopers? I don't know. Everyone get a spear and let's roll logs onto the AT-ATs and stuff. Like that's cool. Like just being able to. I guess there weren't AT. Or was there an AT in this?
Well, ATSTs, but it's okay.
Okay, they're ATSTs.
That Star Wars nerd is showing.
Actually, Ben, while they didn't participate in the Battle of Endor, and AT-AT is what took Luke Skywalker to Darth Vader after he turned himself in.
Right.
That is true.
And isn't there something in one of the Something done in like the 1997 redos, the remasters. There was some in the background, like a big AT-AT walking around. Anyway, it doesn't
I
matter.
don't think so.
They're in
Also
that.
not-
They're in that game. The one that made everybody have to do loot box
Oh, Battlefield?
legislation. Yeah, that
Or
one.
Battlefront.
and they're on Endor. You can see them there.
Yeah.
So I rest my case. Canon proved. Prove that you can. Anyway, what was my point with that? I do admire their willingness to say that, look, we have a homeland here. We have a culture here. We can't just let it go to crap and let a bunch of, foreign influence come and destroy us. So what's not to be admired about that? I love that. So I will roll one. What I'll be, I don't know, but I'll roll one.
Have you heard
Well,
about
Hunter.
rogues?
I want like rogues, but here's the thing. Here's what we ought to do. You ought to make Vulperas, make them all hunters, because just think about all these giant freaking pets that'll be standing next to them. And if they shrink those, if they scale those, they're going to be really annoyed. Blizzard, if you're listening, don't do it. I want like a giant freaking wolf that's so big compared to the Vulpera that I could get on that thing and ride it if I wanted to. That's what I want.
Hey, Jocelyn, you like cute things.
I do like cute things. This is true.
What are you thinking about the Vulpera? I mean, I know that you're primarily playing your paladin in raids for the most part now, aren't you?
I am, yeah. I'm kind of rotating between my paladin, hunter, and priest, depending on what the team needs. But yeah, generally paladin is my go-to. Yeah.
Okay, so since they can't be paladins, which I personally I'm super bummed about, because I've got this Tauren paladin that she's cool and all, but can you imagine?
She'd be
how
so
great
much
it'd be?
better if she
Yeah,
was a
exactly.
Vulpera. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm stoked about them. I think they look really cool. And someone in the chat room a couple of minutes ago, Roper was mentioning about the transmog. Have you guys seen it? That makes him look like Robin Hood from like the animated movie.
Oh my gosh,
Yes,
dude!
I'm
Really?
like, I want that. I want that. So, whatever class I have to be to look like Robin Hood, I am in.
Perfect.
As a kid.
Yeah.
That's awesome, and that's what's fun
Yeah.
about them putting in these kind of races. They get all creative like that. That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, though, I mean, as cute as the Vulpera are, and I think everybody kind of knew that they were coming. Even in the video, they said, worst kept secret ever is that the Vulpera were going to be an allied race. I was kind of hoping for Sethrak. I'm not going to lie. I think they're so cool.
They are kind of cool.
Yeah, they are. They are. I'm with you because I see mechanomes and I'm like, nobody's really talking about the mechanomes. I haven't heard a lot of like deep mechanome talk. Like, guys, come on, mechanomes, right? Gnomes with metal.
Yeah,
we did it.
Well, I mean, I did save the two dumbest names for mechanomes just to have them on Earthen Ring, and that's Nomocop and also Murphy. So
that's
I can have
amazing. Yeah, nice job. I mean, the thing with the mechanomes, I know they have their fans, but they're people who already like gnomes, and they're just like, now I have a cool robot gnome, and or cyborg. I guess they're more cyborg than they are robots, but that's cool, and I'm glad you've got them. But I don't want one.
I mean, okay, Scott, here's the thing. What do you want more? A mechanome? If somebody said you have to pick between a regular gnome or a mechanome, which would you take?
Oh, mechanome, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it is a step up.
For sure it's a step up. In fact, what they ought to really do is just wipe out the gnomes, and only the survivors make it, and the only way to survive is they all get implants and have to be cyber gnomes. And now, it turned into like a real tragedy is the reason they all had to become mechanomes. That would be great.
Okay, what's better, mechanome or the toxic leper gnomes?
Leper gnomes. They just want a big hug.
They do want a big hug. I mean, leper gnomes is funny on about 10 levels that gnomes never will. So yeah, leper gnomes always.
Okay, so they have a way to climb further, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, I've been ripping on gnomes my whole WoW career, and so I don't want to beat that dead horse too much, but they really suck. So this is a good step in the right direction. Good job, Blue.
So they've really upgraded the gnome for you, is what you're saying.
They have, yeah. They've made those. I mean, at least when I go to Mechagon, which I really like, by the way, I think Mechagon's cool. I get it. I see why this is an improvement for those people. and those people. And I hope that I hope they enjoy them. I hope that they bring them joy and happiness wherever they roam. That's what I hope.
Okay, so here's the big thing. Okay, John, I know where you stand on this. Scott, you seem to. I'm just guessing here based off of your enjoyment of Mechagon that you like that more than Nagitar.
I do.
Okay.
Generally speaking, I think Nagitar just reminds me too much of Suramar, which reminds me of grinding, and I don't love it. It's okay, and actually, once you get used to, this comes up on our show a lot on the instance, but once you've gotten used to the how to get around, sort of, that the sort of what's the word I'm looking for? What's that word? Elevation of things, because then you go up like 4 levels to something. It's super
So
annoying.
you're not flying then.
Yeah, before flying. Once you fly, everything's easy. But ahead of flying,
yeah, it was difficult.
Yeah. That rep is weird, and I don't like the motif of like, hey, this is all a bunch of wet stuff that's not wet anymore. I mean, the idea is cool. You know what I mean? But I don't like the look.
Man, I loved that aesthetic. We are like totally opposite because I have not been back to Mechagon since I hit flying. I literally got flying and have not returned, but I like it in Nagitar.
You're definitely not the only person that has said that to me. I've had this argument with Garrett a few times actually, and he is in the same belief system as you. My whole thing is the Mechagon place. The reason I think I like it is because I like rusty old junk. I just think it's cool. It's a good look for me. Whereas the other stuff just feels moist and kind of like chalky, and there's like, I don't know, weird. Everything smells like fish,
Like you just want to take a shower afterwards.
Yeah.
I like that Scott's one of his primary complaints about his zone is the smell.
Well, it's funny though because like,
fish.
I totally agree with you, Jocelyn. I'm so much more a Nagitar person too. Like I don't know what it is about Mechanome that I just cannot get behind.
That you don't know the name.
Yes, Mechagon. Yeah, it's gone from my head. No, just like Timeless Isle, I didn't have a lot of fun there either. Just
I love Timeless Isle. I did.
I don't know. I just can't get behind it, and I've talked about it a bunch, and I just I'm going back now because okay, so if I kill a bird per day, I might get a cool mount, and then I just need to get exalted. Like that's it.
Well, okay, so this is interesting because here's what I'm hearing. So Scott talks about why he likes Mechagon and it's aesthetic, and Ben, you're talking about why you why you didn't really like Mechagon, and you're like, well, I didn't really like Timeless Isle, but Jocelyn doesn't like Mechagon, but she did like Timeless Isle.
Yeah.
And I love Mechagon, but I don't like the aesthetic, but I vastly prefer it. And I think if I'm going to give a fact as to why I prefer it, it's because it's the better zone.
Mechagon, the better zone?
Yeah, it's just the better zone.
It's just the fact.
Yeah, that's probably when I look down the list of the reasons, that's probably the one that stands out as the strongest. This is just that it's better.
I mean, John, I have a hard time arguing with that. I think we're gonna.
I think we're in.
Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing about both of those zones. I actually think it's good content. It's so weird. You were talking about Classic before, and we're not going to really talk about Classic. I played all of 3.5 hours of Classic because it reminded me that I had already played about 200 hours of Classic when it wasn't called Classic. And so because of that, I just kind of fell off. But we've talked about John and I have talked about this before, but it really drove me back into the retail game in a major way. And I kind of went crazy with rep and just leveling up alts and going to old zones and getting stuff out of old raids for transmog. And I just got reinvigorated in the game in a way that I don't think would have happened without Classic. Classic had this way of reminding me of all the stuff I loved about the modern game. And so it made me appreciate those two zones more than I did when they came out, because I think I saw them with different eyes. I think they're designed really well. I think they have really interesting stuff to do. I think sometimes that's good for us to come back to the game and realize how far it's actually come. And for me, that reminder came from playing Classic. So I really admire those two zones. I'm cheating on them right now, though, because I'm playing ESO. I know. It's like cheating on your girlfriend. And it's my backup MMO, and I love it, and I go back to it all the time.
It's
And I
mine
usually
too.
only go back to it when I'm like mad at Blizzard or something, and I'm kind of mad at Blizzard right now. So I'm playing ESO, but if I wasn't, I'd still be, hacking away in those zones and trying to,
Did you end up
get my
getting
business done.
flying?
This close. I'm like this close. It's Mechagon,
That's
the shortest on.
See,
just gotta
that's
go
what
finish
killed
it.
it for me is that I think I would have really liked, because I did like Timeless Isle so much. I spent so much time there. Pandaria was the first expansion where like I was at max level with everybody else. So I jumped into Timeless Isle and there was like people there doing things. It was great. So
Mhm.
I look back really fondly on Timeless Isle, except that with Mechagon, I had to do it to unlock flying, and everybody else, it seemed, was way ahead of me. So then it all just became that much harder because I had to, try to kill rares. By the time my slow ground mount butt got over to the rare, is already dead. So, like it just totally killed the fun for me, because I was just like, man, if with 8.2 just everyone got flying, end of story, like, yay, flying's unlocked, I probably would have loved Mechagon. But just the feeling of like, I have to go there every day. I was just like, oh, I hate it, and I'm behind, and I hate it, and this is dumb.
That's so funny to hear that, because that's the exact same reason for a different zone for me. That's exactly the way I felt about Najatar. I was just like, why couldn't I freaking have flying from the get-go to enjoy this place? This place is clearly a vertical place for flying people to do flying things, and I'm stuck on the ground riding around like a putz. I hate it. I hate it so much.
Yeah, you know what they could do, and I wish they would do this when they do this thing like they did in Legion. What was I forgot the name of the planet we went to. What was it
Argus.
called?
Argus.
Argus. Thank you. We went to Argus. Same thing. If they're going to do this pattern where in the patch schedule there's new continent stuff that pops up in the game, great, but let us have already grinded out what we need to for Pathfinder in the main expansion, and then just flying and then design those to be flown in.
Yeah.
Like, don't make us go ride around more. Like, just design them so that they're flyable. It's okay. You're not breaking any kind of weird covenant by doing this. I know you just wish we would all never have flying in the first place. So now you just make it kind of hard to get.
I'm on board with that, man.
Just don't do it. There's no point. I don't think it helps anybody. It doesn't hurt or help anybody to cram us down that hole. Just let us fly. After we've done everything else, just let us fly, Blizzard.
But
let us fly.
To your point, and this is interesting to hear Jocelyn's take on it, and also Scott, how you came to it, because I had the same thing. I played Classic. I jumped in. I did a stream. I was like, all right, this is fun. And then it made me want to play the game again. And the thing that it made me appreciate that was different when I went back to retail from when the patch first hit was I stopped feeling rushed. And I don't know what it was that took that Classic... like, there's something about vanilla WoW, and I'm now talking about that entire experience, both as Classic and back when I played it back in the day, where it was just like, there was no expansion looming at the time. It was just, this is the game you have to play. Doesn't matter what pace you play at. Doesn't matter how quick you're there. When you talk to your friends about it, it's like, oh, where are you at? I'm here. And nobody really cared. There was no like, oh, you gotta keep leveling or anything like that. I mean, you may run into it a little bit, but generally speaking, it's just like, yeah, I'm level 32, just doing my thing. And people were like, cool, me too. And something about resetting that in my mind by playing Classic, when I went back to those other zones, I said, I don't need to be cutting edge. I'm not raiding. I don't need to have the best eye level. I don't need to have the best gear or anything like that. Who cares if my necklace is super far behind? I'm just going to play it. I'm just going to do what I like. I'm just going to have fun. And, there'll be a new expansion at some point, and we'll see how that all goes. And it calmed me down. And in that calm place, all of a sudden, I appreciated Najatar more instead of just hating it. And then Mechagon, when I finally went to it, I was like, oh my gosh, why didn't I come here sooner? This is great. So I think there is something about that ability to step outside of that, oh, I gotta be right on the forefront of all of this content, and just take your time, that is really important. But what's funny to me, and I'm curious what you guys think about this, is that only works if I come to it naturally. If Blizzard tries to put a gate in front of me to slow me
Yeah.
down and say, don't worry about it, then I go crazy. Then I'm just like, I grab the bars and I'm just like, get me out of here. I hate this so much.
No, I think there's a lot. That's super smart and observant, because I actually think I had the exact same experience when I played Classic again. It was a reminder that, oh, I can go just kind of play how I want to play these games. Like, what am I even doing? Who am I competing with? Why am I rushing around so much? Why don't I just play for the sake of playing? So I started a new a new warrior, and got him up to, I think he's 42 now. I started him in like retail, just brand new level 1, and I loved doing it. And I also started a dwarf hunter for no good reason, because I just never played a dwarf. I just did it.
Well,
He's
it's easier to
level
make fun of gnomes if you're able to actually talk to them.
That's right, and he's a tiny race too. But I don't know. I've gained an appreciation for those guys in fantasy in general. But I came to the exact same feeling, and it made it less bad, or it made it less grindy, because again, I'm not thinking about the gate as being artificial or just this thing that's in my way until the next expansion hits, because that's how my mind would sometimes go at this level, or at this stage of an expansion. So
it's all about
I'm totally
being
with
able
you.
to like dictate how you use your time in game, right? Like having the option to do whatever you want to do within the game, instead of Blizzard saying like, yes, do this, but no, you can't do that. Or, you got to wait X number of time, hours, days, whatever, weeks in order to do the thing you want to do. So, the less gates that they have, then the more, leeway you have to decide how you use your time in game, which I think is really important. And I'm with you guys. I totally hate time gating of all kinds.
And it would be just cool if they could figure out a way to it just needs to not feel like things are being time gated. I guess there's no, but how do we know? You know what I mean? Like it either we're being time gated, or there's some other way that the game has longevity for us as players of our whatever personal style we're playing. And I don't know what the answer is to that. I don't know what to tell Blizzard for that, because they're just trying to make it so an expansion's not over in 2 weeks,
Yeah.
So I don't know.
In fact,
I think sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, it's a perfectly good point to say, they don't want their content to be over in a week. But I think at the same time, it comes down a little bit to confidence. They have to have confidence in their product that, like, if I get all the way through Ashara's Eternal Palace and I've leveled everything I possibly can on my paladin, that I'm going to like that enough to go and try it in a different way, on a different race, as a different class or whatever, and like go and explore all the other things there are to do, pet battle dungeons, like, have faith in your product. And like, if I want to rush through and be raid ready day one, and that's a thing I have 12 hours to sink into the game, like, that's my choice. And I want to do that, but then, I'll go do other things in the meantime. And, like, just have faith in your game and know that there's tons of stuff to do in World of Warcraft. Like, I'm going to stick around because you make a good game.
Yeah, I think is a good point. I also wonder, I was thinking about this the other day. I wonder how much of the game is time gated, at least currently, because they were beholden to a whole nother kind of production schedule. And that schedule was unprecedented use of in-game and out-of-game cinematics as a way to tell the story. And as a result, you are beholden to other timetables other than, we're not done making this zone, or these quests aren't finished. You're now also waiting for a whole other team to do their end of a thing, that you have to time gate your game accordingly so that the story's not being spilled out all at once, because you're not done with all that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
are you blaming the cinematics team?
I guess I'm not blaming them. So it's not so much that they're late, and I'll bet everything went according to schedule. But my point is, there had to be a new schedule, and the new schedule dictated that we can't just do this all simply. Like, you guys are going to have to say, when can we have Starfang goes to Nagrand to hang out with Thrall? Okay, well, we'll have that ready by June. All right, cool. That means we'll have it out by August, which means we need to time gate the game content. Like, there's a whiteboard somewhere that'll make all our heads spin and want to die. And I don't know where that is, but I'd love to see it. So that's my thinking, is that changed things this time around. I could be wrong, but I think it may have forced their hand a little bit than it usually would. It's just a workflow issue. So who knows?
Something that I've actually kind of been thinking about is, so, okay, all three of you were talking about how, Classic kind of made you, slow down, as the Pandarans say, when you came back to retail and realized that this is the time to do what you want. Just, kind of casually enjoy it. And that's what MMOs really should be. Do you think that Blizzard's actual like content release schedule is a big part of that, and the fact that they seem to be dropping content a lot more within the last like 2 expansions than they have previously? We would go half a year, maybe even longer between patches, and now it seems like we're getting one every few months. Are they just not giving us time to have that downtime to go through, like, level up an alt or experience some of the other content, or even just take a break from the game where you're constantly having to kind of jump in and play catch up, especially if you're a raider, you have to make sure that you're geared enough so that you're not a liability to your team, or if you're really wanting to get the story.
I've definitely been the liability this tier for sure.
I feel that. I don't think I have, but I feel like I have. But
well, I've definitely been in a position where I wanted to raid more and haven't. And part of the reason I haven't raided more is because I feel like it's a weird dichotomy. We're complaining about gating of content, but sometimes I don't have time to do the content. How do I put this?
Like,
how dare you put a gate that I'll never reach?
Yeah, like in some ways the gate there's a ton of stuff to do before I can get to the gate, but because there's a gate, I feel like I'm being held back even though I'm not caught up to the gate. It's a weird feeling. Hard to explain, but I definitely have felt that.
Well, I've just been going through and leveling my warrior, because who knew warriors were actually really cool. And I hit 120. I'm super happy. I went through, had an entire benthic gear set. That's all done. I went on the auction house, bought rings, bought weapons, bought trinkets, which I have no idea where I had that gold, but I did. And now I'm sitting at like a 370 item level because my necklace is only like level 50, or it's got level 15 or whatever. So that's the one thing that's holding me back from actually getting much better gear, so that when FERT does start raiding again with 8.3, I can't bring this character in because there's no way that I'm going to catch up in time, because I've got to keep buffing that stupid necklace.
Yeah.
The
so
essence system was really hard. That's why I was so behind as well, is like everyone else on my raid team had unlocked their 3 slots like week 2, it felt like. And I was like, I just got it this week. And I was just like, yes, now I can finally actually compete.
I have even like kind of a horror story with that necklace. So for whatever reason, just luck as it were, John and I have talked about this because somehow he gets lucky with this stuff and I don't. He just rips through some content. But I've got that necklace, and when I got it, or when we got the patch that kind of changed it fundamentally, you had all the new affixes, and I'm very excited to get those. And then I was getting them so slow that the UI was constantly giving me a little tooltip reminder at the bottom of my thing saying, you have an open thing you haven't filled yet. I'm like, I know, because I haven't done the thing required that I have to do to get it. So leave me alone until I do it. And then the tooltip shows up 10 minutes later. You haven't failed a thing yet. And I'm like, I know, as you can see, I don't have a thing to put in there yet. So shut up and quit talking to me. And it won't shut up. And it's so annoying. It's almost I'm numb to it now. It just throbs down there. Just throbs. So obnoxious.
Oh my God.
There's my confession. So I can't really complain about time gating because I'm my own time gate, but there is a mental thing that goes with that I think I'm sure Blizzard knows and probably has acknowledged in various meetings, and they'll think of a way to make me.
I think both things can be true. You can acknowledge that, okay, yeah, the time gating isn't the worst thing. I'm making it out to be way worse than it is. But at the same time, the reality is that when they tell you, it's like if you found out that some like store you've never been to had your picture up and said you're not allowed to come into this store. You'd be a little pissed. You'd be like, what? And it's like, well, okay, but you don't ever shop there. You don't ever want to go there. It's not a store you want to go into. It's not really going to change your life in any meaningful way. But you'd still be like, no, that sucks. Why is my picture up in that store? Why am I not allowed in there? I hate this.
There you go. That's kind of it. It feels discriminatory, even though everyone is subject to the same limits. I just got there slower than you. Blah, blah, blah. You wanted to run Warfronts. I didn't. So I guess I'm screwed because now I'm going to be here longer. Like there's a lot of that going on. And that's the other thing is is the catch-up mechanics in the game are okay in a lot of places, but in some places they're terrible. I don't want to do another Warfront as long as I live. I hate them. I hate
They're
them.
terrible.
And so with something that bad that's just so not fun to play, I just check out. I just can't do it. And so give me more. I need better ways to catch up in the ways I like to play the game. And hopefully they're thinking about that for the next expansion or even this next patch. We'll see.
Do you think that okay, so I for some reason I attribute like Warfronts with garrisons. It's kind of the idea of okay, this is the Warcraft 3 style of something. You know, the Warfront was what if you were on that battlefield and then we were just one of the peons and one of the creep, and you know, it turns out not as interesting as it might be. You know, garrisons were supposed to be like the Warcraft twist to housing and stuff, and it turned out to just kind of be, you know, a boring mechanic that I don't know, like we needed in order to actually, you know, continue and progress with the game. Do you think that, like, looking back to Warcraft 3 and heck, maybe 2 and 1 and everything, in more of the RTS stuff is kind of limiting them on, you know, potential future things that they could create and toss out for ideas?
I mean, if I were them, I would stop trying to do it. And by that, I mean, it's not an RTS. It never was. When they make these attempts to bring back the core of what Warcraft 3 was and Warcraft 2 before it, I think that's just kind of wasted time. I admire the effort, and I think it's kind of cool. The RTS fan of me thinks it's cool, kind of, but the MMO fan of me is like, we're basically just trying to apply too broad a stroke to a very different. It's a whole other genre, and it's one that Blizzard, quite frankly, defined in such a way that every other MMO has had to take from it, or else they don't succeed even a little. So I don't know that they even need to try to do that again. Like, PvP is one thing, but trying to go, isn't this kind of like being on the ground of an RTS? Turns out that kind of sucks. It's not great. I don't want to be down there.
Well, and that's
it's fun in God mode when you control it all, and you know there's a reason RTSs work, but nobody wants to be the peon, and that's kind of what they're asking us to be, and I don't love that.
that's the thing that I always find so weird about it, is because I went back and started playing a little Warcraft 3, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people with the remastered coming out doing this. And when I played it and I started remembering, oh yeah, it's so focused on hero units and doing quests and getting items and buffing that hero, I was like, I was like, wow, this game is a lot like World of Warcraft. Weird. And then I thought about it and I was like, oh, right. World of Warcraft is the RPG take of Warcraft 3. And so the idea of them saying, we need to do a take on Warcraft 3. You already are. That's what you're playing. Like, you don't need to try to recapture that element. It already exists. It's what we're playing literally in the game right now.
Right.
So I that always seems weird when they chase that dragon. I actually kind of like Warfronts a little bit, but so the funny thing is I only like them if I get the cool power-up thing, the big storm thing where I can just go in and there'll be just a horde of enemies dive on me and I just can fight it all because the game, I don't know, randomly selected me to be amazingly awesome. When that happens, I love it. When it doesn't happen, I'm just salty through the whole experience.
Well, yeah, you're the hero unit.
Yeah, it turns out when you get to be the hero unit, it's fun. And if you don't get to be the hero unit and you're just like, well, I guess I'll go chop a tree. Like, that's not reliving your amazing fantasy. I never was playing exactly Warcraft 3 going, man, I wish I could be that peon. Look at him chop that tree. He's having the most fun.
When I do the Arathi Highlands Warfront, my goal is to get and liberate that sawmill and grab an axe and then put flannel on, and then the entire rest of the game I am chopping trees because I don't know what the hell I'm doing, because I'm a healer, and guess what? We don't matter in Warfronts.
You really don't. You're kind of useless. Kind of like totally useless. Yep. And I feel useless as a DPSer in those things because it just feels like, oh, here we're all just pew-pewing, and okay, I guess that animation means keep moving. Like to me, it doesn't feel dynamic. And again, I applaud the effort. I know what they were trying to do. I just don't think it came anywhere close to being as dynamic as they had hoped, or I had hoped anyway.
Yeah, I don't love the fact that they constantly go back and forth, really, but also are supposed to be like story beats, but then there's only 2 of them. I don't know. They ended up being this really, really weird system that I think they just kind of walked away from, and maybe they had more plans. I don't know, but when they first announced them, I was like, oh my God, this could be so cool. Like, what if there's like one outside of Stormwind? What if there's like one up near the Blood Elves? And they're trying to like force them out of Eastern Kingdoms. Like, we're going to be fighting all over the place. This is going to be great. And then they were like, the Night Elves are taking back Darkshore, but only for a week. And then we take it back again, but then they take it back again. I'm like, that's what?
Yeah, and they were also weirdly gated and not very dynamic. They put like separate games, and that's not what this was supposed to feel like. I mean, I like Islands better than those, and I really don't like those much.
Me too.
But I would rather go run
Islands now. Islands grew on me. I leveled a couple of characters through Islands, and I actually preferred it instead of going through the quest for like the 4th time.
How did you handle that with no weapon upgrades? I'm just curious. Like, how did that? Because when I did that with who did I do that with? Oh, I had a druid. I got to 120 playing that way, and by the time I got toward the end of it, I had no. I mean, the weapon I went in there was like the 110 I had, or the one. Whatever it was. Yeah, 110.
Yeah, I think my weapon was pretty good up until I was like 115, I think. It lasted me about half the way, and then I think I went and did a PvP thing and got the weapon, because there was a PvP weapon that was available like right out the get-go with the first set of conquests. So
that's good. That's a smart way to do it. I kind of actually wish the islands were a really viable all the way weapon upgrade and everything sort of way to level alternate characters, because I would do that more.
I wish there was any way to get a weapon upgrade. It's like Blizzard made the last expansion all about weapons, and then they forgot they existed. It's like they didn't get the memo that they were getting rid of the big legendary weapons, and they're like, well, we don't have to design any of those, am I right? And now we're all sitting there like, every 2 weeks, I'm like, okay, good, I can fight the bosses that maybe drop another crab claw for me, because I don't know where else I'm going to get a stupid weapon.
No, you're not wrong. In fact, I was just thinking of this. My lowest eye level item, and I'm not rating, so that probably not. That's hurting me.
That
but my
is
lowest eye level item.
Basically,
they don't drop there either.
Rating in Mythic Plus is pretty much where you need to go.
Yeah, and I don't feel like doing any of that right now, so. Bums me out. I kind of wish there was an alternate way to do it. And I mean, there's some stuff from vendors and the stupid currencies I can get from these new zones and blah, blah, blah. But mostly what I want from them is transmog and mounts. So I don't know. None of that's rubbing my cheese this time around.
I just really wish that Blizzard would finally decide like what weapon is, like, say casters or something are supposed to have. Because like mages, they can have a sword and an offhand, or a dagger and an offhand, or whatever, or a staff. So if you have a staff and you get some sort of really awesome drop or reward that's like an offhand or a main hand, you can't use it. You have to wait. And as a healer, I'm still waiting sometimes. It's like, okay, on my Alliance Monk, I've got a staff. I, for the life of me, cannot get like a one-handed weapon to drop to save my life. But meanwhile, because I'm raiding, I've got a cool main hand, offhand thing on that monk. So weapons.
The biggest stinky poo about the whole thing is also, if you're a transmog nut, this expansion, and arguably, well, I mean, depends on who you were and how cool the weapons are, but this expansion in particular, there's just no cool looking new weapons. I'm using a thing from Warlord still for my gun because I like it so much. Warlord, Greenor, remember that?
It's been so bad. The fact that I'm so excited about crab claws that someone was like, yeah, let's give him a weapon. What's it gonna be? I don't know, a couple of crab claws. It's like, I got the clamps. Like, what are you gonna do with this?
Yeah, my first really cool or good weapon upgrade that I got this expansion came from Ro. He gave me a fish.
Oh my god.
Okay.
Really?
That's awesome.
Yeah. My main hand was an intellect fish. So,
an intellect fish. Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was like 350 or something, and I was just stoked. But I'm like, we're transmogging that right away because I'm not carrying a fish around.
Yeah. I mean, I get that the transmog system lets them kind of say, okay, well, let's be out there a bit, and we can do what we want for people that have always wanted to live their crab claw dream. You know, they can have it now. It can be for them. And for people like me that are like, actually I like weapons. I like swords. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
That's what I'd like to use for my rogue. We still get that. But yeah, it's just been really weird. It's been really weird with weapons, and I feel like I've complained about it enough on the show that somewhere at Blizzard they're going to be like, they complained about the lack of weapons, and next expansion is just going to be weapons falling out of everything. It's going to be like friggin' Zardoz just spewing stuff from the sky, just weapons all down on all of us.
Yeah, but no
And you
rings
won't
and
be
no
able to
trinkets.
find I was gonna say you won't find a neck anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a little odd because, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but in fantasy-based RPGs or even action games or anything where you're, running around Dark Souls-like or whatever, what matters most in these games to people, maybe in WoW in particular, it's two things that matter the most, that they can really show off their EP, for lack of a better term, and that is a big-ass weapon and constantly getting new versions of a cool weapon, and then great big shoulder pads. Like those are your two things that show that you're cool. And when the weapons aren't dropping or even looking good, like what are we doing? It can't be just belts. It can't be trinkets. Trinkets don't even show up anywhere. Like we live in the time now where people spend so much money in a game like Fortnite on a dumb dance or the way they look or a freaking hat, and we can't get a better looking weapon in a game that's all about, wielding a sword and saving the world. I think that's bad. That's bad. They got to work on that. If I was at the WoW Q&A this year, I would ask that question.
I'm still using all my Legion artifact transmogs for
Oh, they're
almost
so
everything.
good.
Yeah, they're really good.
They are good. And maybe they knew people were going to use those forever or something. But the hunter ones, quite frankly, are lame. They're not great. They look like a bunch of Fisher Price plastic guns. I don't like them. And
Well, yeah,
so
that's I don't use any of the guns. I like for the hunter. I like the marksman bows.
Oh, the marksman bow is great. You get a
Yep.
quiver.
Yeah, that
That's
does
so
look
important.
Yeah, that looks really good. Actually, quivers in general are cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're super cool.
Focus on quivers, Blizzard. Change your name to Quivered.
Quivered.
That would keep some of the heat off they're currently experiencing. The whole name would change to Quivered. Every game is bow and quiver focused. I'm telling you, hot idea. Scott just gave it to you for free.
And then mages can have a quivered spell that just drops arrows, kind of like old volley.
Yep.
There you go.
Yeah.
Oh man, volley. I miss volley. Volley was great. Multi-shot is a butthole. I hate it.
Well, if you like volley, let me tell you a game you can go and play.
Well, all I know is playing ESO, I got a volley in that game. Every encounter I start with a bow raining down of arrows from the sky, and then I go rushing in, and it reminds me of old Warcraft.
Is it called
wish I had
volley?
that.
What's it called?
No, it's I forgot. Rain from it's some kind of name that's not that. I can't remember.
Death
But I
from
get the
above.
fire. That maybe it's sort
I
of
don't-
like that.
Arrows
exactly
from
the
the
same.
sky.
It's some kind of like arrow. I have to look it up. But it works real good. Drops a lot of arrows, hurts a lot of dudes, a lot of good pre-AoE before I go into a fight and whip out my dual wield. And I don't know. Those guys seem to be doing some good stuff with that stuff. But I just know that this next expansion will either have a greater focus around weapons, maybe even a return to what made Legion great, or
That'd be great.
yeah, I mean, I loved what was great about Legion didn't really carry forward. I think they thought they were, because I think what they thought was great was more numbers going up, and that's kind of cool because everyone likes higher numbers. But what the numbers are going up on is what matters, I think.
Yeah.
And that was augmented by and you also have a guild hall, and you have, or not guild hall, a class hall, and you've got this rad lodge I can go to, or if my mage can go up to this cool tower, all this weird mage stuff's going on. Like there's something about all of that milieu that just added up to me much more than just I'm increasing stats slowly over time by grinding this out, and it's missing this time, and it's a bummer because I think that was a really powerful part of that expansion.
And turns out weapons are cool.
Weapons are
Yeah.
cool,
And
yeah.
nobody has ever been like, check out the necklace.
No.
It's pretty.
Yeah, how many
can't even
how
see
many
it.
Destiny players? How many people play Destiny going, you see these boots? Check these boots out. Nobody's doing that. Nobody does that. They might have a full outfit kind of jam going on, but mostly it's that this gun does this thing and you don't have it, and like that matters. That stuff matters, and I think it matters in WoW. It always mattered in WoW, and these are all these other games that rip WoW off anyway. So rip yourselves off. Get back to that.
And it's funny because I actually just got my legendary daggers from Cataclysm. I finally finished that quest line, wrapped that up. And at the very end, I equipped them, and I remembered that they did a thing where if you jump off something and you right-click it, you get a big, like, demon wings come out of your back. Kind of lame now. Demon hunters are like, yeah, I do that just by pressing the space bar twice. But back in the day, that was really cool. And I was like, oh, man, yeah, look at how cool this stuff was. Like, and if you saw a rogue who suddenly just grew wings, you were like, man, that rogue's awesome. Like, some of that stuff is so cool. I miss stuff like that. Like, I wish there was more of it. It always, there's always that anecdote, and I think it was actually Ghostcrawler who said it back in the day, which was they didn't expect transmog to be so big. And that always floors me to hear that, because you look at how every company has monetized anything in the free-to-play games as a service market, and you go, how did you not know that the only thing people care about is how their characters look, what they fight with, and what they do when they want to get down? How did you not know that this was the most important thing to so many of us?
It is a little bit weird because I had assumed that the movement to do it, to even have a feature like that, was a reaction to cosmetics in video games, including their own games. Like, Diablo beat him to the punch in terms of that feature. Like, to me, that was to me it seems obvious. So when they say something like, well, we didn't realize, I don't know, man. If you didn't really realize, then I don't know, maybe that explains a few things. I'm just saying.
I'm just hoping that eventually they come to the day where they're like, oh yeah, no, you can totally transmog legendaries, because we can transmog our artifacts. And if I remember correctly, one of the reasons that they didn't want to be able to transmog legendaries is because everybody would be walking around with the same thing. Well, we just had an expansion where everybody was literally walking around with the same thing.
Yep.
So,
and not only that, the sameness was, we were able to get away from the sameness through other methods of stuff, and it's a robust transmog system. It works really well. I think it fundamentally changed how I think about my character, and I don't look like a clown all the time. Like I can be who I want to be when I want to be it, and regardless of how powerful I am, I can kind of still decide how to dress, and that makes a giant difference. How they, just this idea that wasn't a forefront in their mind when they came up with that or decided to implement it, that's mind-blowing to me. But I guess we're now on the other side of it. The thing is, like, what Legion proved is you don't need absolute uniqueness for the weapons. Everybody's sharing, some of the most legendary weapons in the game, or in the history of the lore, or any of that stuff. But what it proved was all the stuff you build around it can make a giant difference. It wasn't just the weapon. It was that I got to go to my own place. It's that the freaking demon hunters could just float down to their own little Grand Island off the side of the city and do some dark shiz, like that was a great thing. They need to bring that back. Right now it's just, I picked up a fake misty thing because it covered it for Muradin, or his brother, and that's cool. And now what happened? It says I got some. All right, I guess I did. I didn't have to go open anything, but I guess I got it. Oh, it says I opened anything on my necklace. I haven't looked at that in 4 days. It's just not the same as that. And it's weird to me that they fell so far from that tree, because that tree seemed pretty obvious to me.
Yeah, I really enjoyed working towards a lot of the stuff in the Legion artifact weapon system. I mean, even talking about transmog and the look of things, just having, even if I wasn't working on necessarily powering up my weapon and, getting new abilities or buffing stuff or whatever, I was still working towards different achievements and things that would give me special skins that felt super cool and way different. And, we might all be carrying around Ashbringer, but, mine's all broken or mine's red, and you could just, show off a little bit by the things that you were able to do. So I liked that. I thought that whole achievement, different skins for your artifact weapon, that was really robust too, and was a lot of fun. I'm glad it's available now to transmog our other stuff, but
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure,
well,
but it was nice. It was just nice because it was just the whole expansion had variety, the right kind of variety, and it just kind of worked for every kind of player. And the variety came in class differentiation or differentiate. I can't say words. It
differential.
came in
Differentiation.
classes were different from each other. Thank you. But like, you know, if you were a mage, you had a totally different experience than if you were a priest. And vice versa, and everybody else. Like, that is really diverse and interesting. And it made you want to play, not only play your alts, but you just wanted to see everything and do everything. And even if it was the bare minimum of everything, you got a really good broad experience. And we're talking about an expansion that was just one expansion ago. We're not talking about, remember Lich King, blah. Like, it just happened. So that's why I'm bummed a little, is because it just happened. And they didn't carry that forward. But also, I could argue that when Pandaria had just happened, and I thought they nailed so much in Pandaria. I love Pandaria. Such a great,
Definitely.
everything about that expansion. And then Warlords was a huge bummer. Well, maybe that's just how this is going to go. It's like Star Trek movies. They're good every other one. We may as well just settle into that idea.
Yeah.
I've
fine.
said that, and here's the thing. I want to ask this, and this is too big of a question for at the very end, so we'll just say short answers for this, even though it's a very complicated topic. Do you think it says that Blizzard has trouble having faith in itself when we know that they're working on the next expansion, even before the expansion that's about to come out comes out, if they're already abandoning these ideas? So in other words, this expansion doesn't reflect Legion because they didn't know what was successful about Legion at the time. And rather than having faith that Legion was the right path, they were already building something that was in its own way a course correction. Does that suggest they don't actually have faith in their own product?
I don't know. What it suggests to me, I always think of stuff as that it's probably a workflow thing. And I know that seems super basic and dumb, but the way they have to churn these things out, right? The way they churn these games out, these expansions out, I think there was a lot that went into Legion that made them less than hands-on with Warlords. The Warlords got by with the minimum, and it did okay, so that they could all work on Legion. And then I think the same thing happened here. I think Warlords, they tried to improve that, but I think that BFA was the off one because there's a lot of hands on deck for whatever gets announced in a week and a half, 2 weeks, whatever it is. So I could be wrong, but that's my thinking. I don't think it's a confidence thing. I don't think it's any of that. I think it's purely, we want to make sure we hit every 2 years with this. And that means we have to do the announcement every other year. And that means we have to hit these marks. Like, I think all of that contributes to, you know, whether they wanted to or not in the beginning, it contributes to them shoving everything forward in a way that you kind of have a mediocre one, and this next one will be different.
So
of course,
do you think that it
true unless it happens, but yeah.
I was just saying, do you think that means that that there's two different teams, or that one team is smaller than the other or something? Like, why this like good expansion, bad expansion cycle?
I think that it's that's a really good question. I don't think they're two teams, but I think again, total guess here. Zero, based this on no facts at all. It's just something tells me that while they're working on the next one, when they're in the middle of one that's huge and took all hands on deck and had huge crunch to it, like I think Legion did, I think the next one just naturally falls into a slot of, well, we're not going to have as crazy a weapon system, so we can kind of relax on that front. We're really going to focus on, this particular story, even though maybe some don't think it was very good, but it's going to involve a brand new way for us to presenting that story, both in game and out. And we've never really done that before, so we're going to do that this time. And I think that's like easier stuff to try out and get out there and give it a shot, while their best brains are hammering away on what's next. And again, I don't have any proof for this idea. It just feels that way to me. And it has for quite a bit of time, because I would argue since BC, which was their first expansion, it feels like the every other started. And by that, I mean Cataclysm, excuse me, Lich King was the first of, all right, all hands on deck. Cataclysm taking a little bit of a break, not a break, but just kind of that's the workflow. And then Pandaria, boom, big huge deal. Warlords down, Legion up, this down. Like we're in the pattern now. Now whether they break that pattern, well, I hope they don't break it this time, because if this next one's good, that means we're on the pattern. So for at least now, Blizzard, be on the pattern, and then when that one's done, try to stay on or break the pattern and make it every game,
make everything good.
Yeah, but I realize that this is all coming from complete. I don't have any idea because I don't work there. I don't know, but something tells me it's workflow related or capacity related, even though this is a giant rich company.
Well, the thing that worries me about what you're saying there is if you're talking about like workflow and how quickly they're getting things out and everything else, then BFA is at a very similar like workflow and time frame to what Legion had. So if they're essentially not able to keep up, if BFA is the proof of that and the downturn, then does that mean that because we haven't had a WOD with like a year and a half of no content in order to make Legion amazing, does that mean that like play kind of have mediocre stuff because they're on such a quick like 12-week release schedule?
Well, it could be because I don't know if you guys remember this, but I remember when Blizzard was trying to aim for a yearly expansion size content releases.
Mhm.
And it was talked about a whole bunch early in the days. And they were like, yeah, we're going to get this down to the bone here and really figure it out. And they just have never done it. They could never get that tight. I think they're as tight as they're ever going to get. And the only way to ensure a more consistent expansion release quality schedule would be for them to take more time than they already do. And there's a balance there because gamers, as much as they want every expansion to be perfect, have terrible patience and they don't want to wait that long. So then you have to think, well, then how do you keep this game as a service exciting and robust while we're working on it longer? And that still takes a bunch of content. That still takes a bunch of attention. So I don't know. I think this has been a hard equation from day one for them, or I should say the day they decided the expansions were the way to go. And I don't know that they've mastered it or solved it. If anyone can, I think they can, but I don't know. It may take a rethink of how it all works. I don't know. It's just that the way they've established the game, the pattern is 2 big new continents. Let's go. Quest. Everybody get all your shit. Woo! We're good. Everyone's got their stuff. All right. Now what? Oh, raid. Dungeon. Well, how about mythics? Okay, mythics. Okay, cool. Then you got a new continent. Let's go do a new thing and grind some additional rep. Let's fly a little bit later. Okay, cool. Then maybe 2 more continents. And then at the end, we'll have another final raid and then a big lull. And then we have a new expansion. If that's the pattern, there's not a lot of wiggle room for a whole other way to play it. In other words, there's lots of ways to play it and get to that end by, I don't know, just doing world quests or just PvPing or just running building alts all day or whatever. Those things are still there, but it doesn't feel like there's anything new exactly to do in the downtime between these chunks of content. And so I don't know. It's hard to define what that is, obviously, because I'm having a hard time defining it, but I hope that Blizzard can find a way to expand on that aspect of the game so there's just always something to return for. And not just, well, last time I was here, all my rep was only honored. I need revered with everybody. Well, that's not fun. That's boring. Or at least it is after 14 years. You know what I mean? So I think they just got to squeeze more out of that lemon. And I have zero idea how they do that, but I have a strong feeling that that's important. However they get there, maybe they will, maybe they won't.
You should just try starting to play in Cataclysm, and then you don't have the 14-year problem.
Good point. Yeah. See, that's
I'm totally fine with all this.
when you started in Cataclysm, that's so interesting because that's a very different perspective, right? Like you don't even have that vanilla perspective that a lot of players have, which is like, oh, that was when the game was great. Blah, blah, blah.
Nope.
You're like, No, that's a
I've
game I
never
didn't
played
play.
Wrath of the Lich King, you guys.
So to Jocelyn, the game is great.
Yeah, exactly.
Never not great, and that's the thing. Like everybody's gonna have a different experience, but
Well,
we're at a weird part of that game's history, and I don't know. Like I don't know what's next. I know they're sure getting good at pushing out story content that may or may not be everyone's cup of tea, but it sure looks good. Like, is that the new focus? Is it
I
something
do
else?
have one hopeful thing that we can maybe consider as we move into whatever is next, and then, you know, going on to BlizzCon pretty soon here, and that is this. As much as I agree with the assessment that it's a good expansion, bad expansion, and we've been on this wave, one thing that I have felt has been true to various extents is even on the bad expansions, the last content patch is usually really good. I don't know if that's a result of it comes late enough that it benefits from all the lessons learned along the way in a really strong way. I don't know if it is because they have a real clear vision of where they're going and so it feels tighter and better. But usually that last patch is really solid. And I have to say, based on what they've teased so far and talked about, I'm genuinely really excited about it. I think there is some stuff in there that sounds extremely cool, and it's in some ways, again, it always depends on how it actually plays, but it's the most excited I've been about this expansion from a what I'm doing in the game perspective. Mm-hmm. And so I'm hopeful, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of that.
Until we find out at BlizzCon when they announce that there's going to be an 8.4.
Whoa. Breaking all the rules. Yeah. I mean, they may. Who knows? You know? I don't know. That's the whole thing. Like, this would be about the time you'd expect them to shake things up 14 years, 15 years into a game. So it's entirely possible
that.
Yeah. Or they may not. Like, that's the other thing. Things are a little bit clamped down right now. There's apparently sort of budgetary restrictions on a lot of things. It hasn't been the best PR year for the company. That's the most understatement thing I could ever say.
Why? Has something gone on?
Yeah.
No, nothing's happened.
Yeah, nothing's happened. Everything's fine. Everything's great. Nothing's changed. But yeah, like all of those factors add up to maybe it's the year you make a change, but maybe also with all that stuff going on, maybe it's the year you don't change what works. Mm-hmm. And what works is regular content releases. People buy them, people play the game, people sign up and renew their subs, and you also have Classic there sort of chugging away, keeping people around, and those people are already paying their 15, so they're going to probably check out retail when it hits, and you know, like they're maybe in a better position to keep things the same with that extra level of attention that Classic brings. I don't know. This is going to be a weird year. I'm not for all the reasons everyone's worried about. I actually think it's going to be genuinely a strange year for Warcraft. And how do I put this? My prediction is they're going to get up and announce this expansion in a way that we're not used to. I don't know what that means. Just count on it.
Nude.
We'll come back to
do
this.
it nude.
They're going to go, Scott was right with his vagaries. He was dead right about the thing he didn't really explain very well. That's what you'll say about me when I'm dead.
Man, I want to just keep going, but I just realized something. So the last, like, I mean, Legion was great. I think we all agree on this. Yep. The last really good expansion before that, I think we were all kind of in agreement that it was Pandaria. Well, after Pandaria, we went into Warlords when, like, the big gimmick kind of started happening in WoW. So, you know, garrisons, big gimmick. Then we move into Legion, artifact weapons, big gimmick. And then we move even further into Battle for Azeroth right now. Azerite Necklace, big gimmick. So whatever next big gimmick is should hopefully go also into the Star Trek rules and be pretty cool because it's every other one so far.
Yeah. By the way, when I wrestled in high school, my name was Big Gimmick.
Yeah.
Yeah, they called me Big Gimmick. It was real intimidating stuff.
Mm-hmm. Hard to live up to, probably, a name like that.
Yeah, it is now. I mean, I'm nothing like it. I've lost it all.
Well, Jocelyn, Scott, thank you so much for joining us this week. It has been an absolute killer episode, and you both are some of our favorite people, so it's been great having you both on.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. You know, one of the things I love about being on here, or a lot of shows that are kind of in and around our little community, is it's I don't know. It's more than just, hey, you want to be on my show because we both talk about WoW. It's it's friends, and we've known each other for a long time, and we really like what each other does. And I don't know. I think it's important that we do this once in a while. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here. And I like I said, I never get to do anything with Joss, so it's nice to hang out with her a little bit.
Very much so. And it has been a long time. I feel like it's been like 10 years.
Yeah, no, listen, I mean, look, sometimes I'm reminded abruptly just how deeply rooted all of this and all these people I know is. Like, it's weird to think about all these years in the past when I first met people the first time, or I think the first time Jocelyn and I ever saw you was at Nerdtacular, like 2011 or something.
Yeah, 2011 or 2012. I can't remember which one my first one was now, but it was so long ago.
Yeah, it seems like yesterday, but at the same time, it seems like 100 years ago. And
yeah,
I don't know, everything just keeps on chugging. Everybody's got their own rad stuff going on. Like, I think the world of all of it, I keep using the term connective tissue because it's kind of gross, but I actually mean it. Like, everybody's connected in a kind of a cool way. And I don't know, as much as I'm kind of irritated with Blizzard right now for various reasons, I'm also super grateful for it brought everybody together, and I love that. So thanks for having us on, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
We haven't all been united in the same
eventually.
spot since Siege of Orgrimmar.
That's right.
Very true. Well, Jocelyn, if people are looking for you and want to, catch more of what you do and everything, where's the best place to find you?
Hi, you can find me on Twitter and Twitch. I'm at Joss Plays. That's JOCE Plays. And if you guys like Warcraft, which of course you do because you're listening to this, do check out For Azeroth. We just recorded episode 100. So
nice.
yeah, it's been chugging along.
Nice job. That's great.
Scott, I know that you're pretty low key and people don't know much about you, but if they do want to catch you somewhere online and see some of the other things you do, what's the best place to find you?
Well, you can go to my SoundCloud. I am busily making content as well. You can find everything I do over at frogpants.com if you're primarily interested in Blizzard and World of Warcraft and all of that. You may have heard of it before, but if you haven't, you can still check out a little show called The Instance. We just put one up this morning where Patrick Beja and I talked a lot about a lot of things, but primarily we talked about BlizzCon predictions in general. And if you want to hear a little bit more discussion about that and the current sort of PR issues, we definitely went deep there, and you get something out of that. But for everything else, you can find me at frogpants.com, and of course on Twitter, I hang out at Scott Johnson.
All right. Hey, John.
Yeah.
I know you, and I know where to find you, but what if some of these fine people don't? Where might they be able to look?
Well, I'm excited I get to tell you because I was worried Scott was going to take it. Because in theory, Scott could have covered all these bases for me and just shut it all down for me. But he didn't, so I can say, hey, if you like video games, you can catch me on a little show called Core. And that is also part of the Frog Pants Network, which Scott just talked about. And you can catch me on Sundays playing There Will Be Dungeons, which is a game Scott and I both play. He is one Nash Magart of the Solar Mines, and I am Stanley Billings. And we play D&D. There Will Be Dungeons. It's a great show. Everybody should check it out. We have a good time, and you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, in particular this weekend, by the way, there's going to be some stuff. Apparently, even John, I don't think knows about some of the stuff I know.
See,
about.
You keep saying this. I saw you tweet about it, and I was like, "What is this?"
I had to be
Helena Johnson.
Oh, and look, Bo's in the chat. There's a surprise this week.
The only reason I know is because I have to be on the production end of things. And I wish I could tell you, but it'll be better if you're surprised.
Okay.
You and Varel and Hope, but it is so much fun. If you haven't played D&D in a lot of years and you wanted a good excuse to be like dragged back in, I think TWBD is the way to do it. So I'm here with what John says. D&D, baby, catch it.
That was well done, Scott. Thank you. Ben.
Yes, John.
You do shows, man. Besides this one, you're busy.
In fact, to jump on the D&D train, I'm actually on a D&D campaign show called +5 to Hit, so check that out. I also do a show about Dungeons and Dragons with Ryan Reeder, where we talk about stuff on a DM and player perspective. Check out D&D Discussions.
That's a
in
TBK
fact-
Zord, Scott.
Yes,
Oh
it is
yeah,
TBK.
TPK. Yeah, he cheats at Heroes of the Storm.
Well, it's funny because in our next episode coming out, not this Monday, but next Monday, we actually have one Bo Schwartz guesting on the episode. We
guy.
chatted with him all night. It was pretty cool.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
We love
but
Bo. Both good guys. He also cheats as DM. Just kidding. He doesn't know.
and then last but not least, if you want to hear me talk about random geeky stuff, you can always check out Box Fort, where Ludra and I talk about whatever the hell we want, because it's what we do. And of course, you can always find me on Twitter at Ben Bumhofer. Other than that, though, this show, Azeroth Roundtable, hey, guess what? We're a show. We're on Twitter. We are at AzerothRT. And if you have any questions, comments, want to tell us why you think Vulpera are the master race, you can go ahead and send those emails to AzerothRoundtable@gmail.com. As well as check out all of our episodes on AzerothRoundtable.com, as well as on iTunes, TuneIn, Spotify, fun stuff like that. And of course, we do stream live Friday nights. Check out our Twitter at AzerothRT to find out when that is. And for everybody who's been waiting and wondering and hoping and praying, yes, next week we will have our annual BlizzCon prediction episode. Ro's going to be joining us, as well as Manny, who you might know
Ooh.
from For Azeroth.
Yay! Careful, he's really smart. He's gonna predict all the things.
I know. I'm actually really glad that I get to be the judge this year, and I don't have to compete against him. I don't have faith that I would win that, so I'm happy that I am the king this year. Hey everybody, this is the end of the show where I tell you that the answer to most of life's problems can be solved with money, and if your problem is this show, why don't you try and solve it by giving us some? Patreon.com/AzerothRT is where you go to do just that. We want to thank everybody who's a patron of ours, but we always give a special little shout out to the Murloc Club for going above and beyond. You keep trying. Reach for those stars, Murloc Club. That's Aaron, Brandon O, Haster, Jesse O, Caleb M, Kilroy Tastic, and Taryn. Thank you so much. There you go.
And until next time, again, Jocelyn, Scott, thank you very much for joining us. Chat room, you guys were awesome and were very talkative tonight. Thank you for all the support. John, it's been fun as always. And everybody, until next time, be good to each other.
I feel like I got the timid part of that sign off.
Hey, John,
not
you
that...
fucking rock.
All right.
There you go.
That's the way we end the show. Goodbye, everybody.